Welcome back to another EM Board Bombs episode. We've got a special episode today. Today's episode was filmed in the Grand Canyon. Yes, if you've been following us long enough, you know that we like to do episodes in random, remote locations. The topic is going to be lightning strikes. A perfect place to film this episode. Filmed by our own Marlena Wasiski Kun, MD, PhD. So she went to the Grand Canyon, filmed a pretty awesome episode for us where she clipped together a bunch of pearls for lightning strikes and how to manage them, how to prevent them, and all the good stuff they like to ask on boards, but also just good general knowledge to know when you're out there backpacking, camping. It's a short episode, but it's got a lot of high yield pearls that we hope you'll enjoy. Remember, EM Rapid Bombs, we have that separate premium podcast. More than 500 episodes. We're approaching 600 episodes. Each episode starts with a question and then is followed by an answer with an in-depth explanation of how boards and ITE will ask you. Completely different than all other types of board review and ITE studying that's out there right now. You don't have to sit in front of a computer for hours or listen to really boring podcasts, lectures that go on for hours and hours. Ours is short, sweet, and simple. It's to the point. You can find it on emboardbombs.com by clicking on our question bank there, or just look at the show notes and our bio for the link to EM Rapid Bombs, the premium podcast. All right. And without any further ado, it is Marlena in the Grand Canyon. Topic is lightning strikes.
What's up, everybody? It's Dr. Wasliski coming to you live from a really, really big hole with another EM board bomb. A 34-year-old tourist is hiking back up Bright Angel Trail when a sudden Arizona monsoon storm rolls in. He's struck by lightning while holding a selfie stick on the rim. EMS finds him pulseless, clothes shredded with linear burns, and his hiking partner is screaming that the canyon tried to kill him. What's the most important initial management step in the ED? So the Grand Canyon is one of the top lightning strike locations in the United States, accounting for 20 to 30 deaths per year in the U.S. And the peak monsoon season is July to September, so we're right at the end of it. So lightning strikes carry a massive electrical current. We're talking 100 million volts. That's 30,000 amps. And there's 3 injury mechanisms that you need to be aware of. First is a direct strike. So that's the rarest but the most deadly. Remember, we're talking 100 million volts. The second is a side splash or a ground current. So that's going to be the most common, especially when there's groups of people. That's from the lightning that travels through the ground. Obviously, side splash, it's pretty self-explanatory. And then the third is going to be blast injury that we're aware of from other injury mechanisms like weapons. And that's from the shock wave. So think things like tympanic membrane rupture, lung blast injury. Lightning strikes are unique when you think about electrical currents because of the very short duration exposure. So there's going to be less deep burns than a high voltage electrical injury. So things to know about the clinical presentation of a lightning strike. Your most immediate killer is going to be cardiac arrest via asystole or ventricular fibrillation. And this is why immediate defibrillation with an AED is so important. Then you have the 2 things boards love to mention, which is corona paralysis, a flaccid, pulseless extremity that recovers in hours. Lichtenberg figures, which is something they love to put pictures of, are these fern-like erythemas that are pathognomonic. Then you have your ocular and ENT problems, cataracts, tympanic membrane ruptures from blast injuries, like I mentioned before, and then your secondary traumas like falls, especially somewhere like this huge hole. When arriving on the scene of a lightning strike, remember, lightning can strike the same spot twice. You need to get patients and rescuers off the exposed ridges, open areas, and away from any tall trees. Spread group members out like 15 to 20 feet apart to reduce multiple casualties if there is a single ground current strike. Remember the thing I mentioned before, spread injuries. So what are your priorities on scene? You may have heard of something called reverse triage. And that's because in cardiac arrest, you have patients that are in asystole or VFib. And normally in triage, patients that are pulseless, you're going to ignore and mark them as a black tag, leave them. But in the situation of a lightning strike, the dead are not truly dead. So patients in arrest can recover if they're resuscitated immediately. And by resuscitated, I mean shocked. So you go to those patients first, defibrillate, and then start CPR. Secondary, think about your airway, your breathing, pulmonary edema, ARDS, secondary blast injuries to the lungs. Then, once you're transporting the patient or once they're in your ED, fluids and burns, these aren't really like the high voltage injuries. I mentioned before, you don't have those really big superficial burns. So it's more supportive care. You don't have to resuscitate with fluids as much, but be aware. Tetanus prophylaxis, can't ever forget your life-saving tetanus. And then long term, these patients are going to have potentially neurocognitive issues, chronic pain, PTSD. So think about taking care of them like you would any trauma patient. So, what are your evacuation priorities? You want immediately to evacuate people that have persistent neurodeficits, burns covering any large areas, any ocular injuries, tympanic membrane ruptures with vertigo, or obvious trauma from a fall. Then minor burns, transient neurodeficits like the coronoparalysis. Those can often be monitored if stable, but remote canyon locations means they need to be evacuated anyway. So if you're caught in a storm with no shelter, you're supposed to crouch low with your feet together and hands over your ears. You insulate with a backpack or a foam pad if you're available. It's not perfect, but it reduces contact with ground current. You never lie flat on the ground because that increases your surface area. So Caspian's here to bust some wilderness lightning myths. First, rubber soles do not protect you from lightning strikes. Doesn't matter what the bottom of your shoes are made of. Second, CPR is not futile in a lightning arrest. Some patients regain ROSC even after prolonged CPR. Lastly, Lichtenberg figures do not mean severe burns. They're just skin capillary changes, not even true burns. Good boy, Caspian. So you might survive the rim-to-rim hike, but the Arizona sky can still try to kill you. In lightning strikes, the patients who look dead might actually be the ones most likely to live. Reverse triage saves lives. In our question stem, EMS defibrillated the patient on scene and brought them to the ED where you did the right thing and continued ACLS.